Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm Suzanne Monroe, founder of the International Association of Wellness Professionals, where I've been teaching people how to live a life of wellness, tap into their passion, and go for their dreams for over 15 years. I believe living well and dreaming big starts with ourselves. This podcast will show you how to create a healthy, holistic life, empower your mindset, follow your dreams, and make a big impact. Let's dive in right now. Do you ever notice how sometimes you just feel like cleaning out your closet or rearranging your furniture or maybe even rearranging your life? I've been feeling this energy lately. I've been moving my living room furniture around, decluttering my closets. And you know what? I think it all comes down to one thing: transitions. See, transitions are happening all around us all the time and even within us. And in today's episode, I'm going to share more about transitions and how we can learn to trust transitions instead of resist them. And when we do trust them, what can open up? So let's dive in. Today, we're talking about trusting your transitions. And a transition is happening right now. I don't know if you guys can feel it, but I believe you are in transition right now. And that means there's some good things coming your way. Now, why do I think this? Well, it's because everyone is in some sort of transition most of the time, and especially right now because a season is changing. So most people go through a transition this time of year, whether they realize it or not. It's spring right now at the time of this recording, but this can be really applicable to any time of year, any change in seasons. But in cultures and traditions across the world, spring really symbolizes kind of renewal and rebirth and transitions and change. And I think we all have a part of ourselves that aligns with these traditions and truths, no matter what our own belief systems are. There's kind of just this knowing, this cycle to things ending and beginning, right? I think the more that we can kind of open up to that and see what's happening around us, we can really learn to flow with that and actually flow through life a little bit better. So again, this happens with any season. It's spring right now, but you might be listening to this episode at another time in another season, and a transition could be starting or ending then as well. And, you know, I think transitions are really interesting because sometimes we just resist them. First of all, we may not be aware they're even happening, but if we start to feel any inclination of change, we kind of resist them. But since they're always happening, today I want to talk a little bit about how to embrace the transitions in your life and how to trust your transitions. Okay, I'm going to share kind of 3 different steps or tips that you can take. The first step is to notice transition happening around you. Don't worry so much about your own life or things that are happening with you. Just kind of notice transition happening around you. And this might be just noticing the spring buds popping out on the trees right now. I noticed this weekend. I looked out my window. I thought, oh, wow, all the trees have these little green things coming out. It wasn't there a few weekends ago. So I decided to go out and I cut a few branches off and I brought them into my house in a vase. They actually looked pretty on trend, I have to say, but that's not why I did it. I did it to remind myself that this transition is happening all around me, right? So now every morning when I pass by this vase, transitions, right? I can remind myself transition is happening outside, everywhere around me, but I can also remember it's happening inside too. So you might notice this for yourself. Just go outside, check out the seasons changing, or you might notice it with family members or friends who are going through different transitions, especially your kids. Kids are constantly in transition if you have kids, okay? They're not only growing and constantly transitioning and changing, but they're always kind of getting into new things. At least I know with my son, Luca, who just turned 10 years old this month, he gets into different phases, right? He transitions from one thing to the next, and it's almost like there's this real start and end to everything. First, he was into Hot Wheels and anything to do with cars. Then he was into Legos, anything to do with building. Then he was into bikes, and now he's into skateboarding. And you can almost see this transition coming to the next thing. He just goes full into it. So notice transition happening around you. And then you can realize it's not just happening around you, it's happening everywhere, and it's happening within you too. And that's really the second step. Look for your own transition. And it could be something small, like maybe just cleaning out your closets or rearranging your home, and you're feeling an energy of clearing out or decluttering, spring cleaning, or just making some changes maybe with your health or your food and how you eat or your routine, right? It can come in different ways. For example, over the weekend, my husband and I were doing some serious clearing out and rearranging. I don't know what was going on, but we were both feeling it. We were both tuning into transition. My husband was clearing out the basement and he totally rearranged it. And I was cleaning out my closets and rearranged the living room. So it was kind of funny. This was happening simultaneously. So transition can really almost be this energy that you can really lean into, and it can feel really good. On the other hand, it can be something big, like moving to a new home or letting go of a relationship that's toxic or that isn't really feeling right anymore, or just finally deciding to leave a job or a career that isn't in alignment with you anymore, right? These are bigger transitions. And those are the ones that are a little bit harder to trust or harder to embrace. I mean, we do tend to resist them, right? Because they feel so big and we don't know what's on the other side of them. I know that when I rearrange my furniture, like I can switch it back if I don't like it, right? But if I decide to rearrange something in my life, like there may be no going back. So it's a little scarier, which really brings me to tip number 3, trust your transitions, which is what we're talking about today. How can we trust these transitions? Because the thing about transitions is that they can be easy or they can be hard, right? But the bigger they are, usually the harder they are. So we tend to kind of stay in one place. We resist them. And then unfortunately, what happens is we get stuck. It's like being stuck in the mud. We're like, oh, can't go anyway. Can't go back, can't go forward, right? And we can easily feel the energy, of course, of clearing out our closet and just rolling with it. But when we feel the energy to make that bigger change, we don't always just roll with it, again, because it feels too big. And we simply don't even know, not just about what's going to happen next, but we just don't even know how to move forward sometimes. It really reminds me of when I was stuck in my old job in a career that I didn't love. And I really wished I was doing something that I love to do, that I would love to wake up to every day, but I didn't know what it was. I knew I was not meant to be in the career that I was in. Everything about it felt totally off, right? But instead of leaning into the transition and being opening to what was next, for a long time, I just stayed stuck. And when I stayed stuck, I was negative, I was fearful, I was frustrated, right? I wasn't open to possibilities. And so I was kind of leaning into the opposite of the transition. I was really paying attention to what wasn't going right for me. Right. And that's normal. But because I didn't know what was next and I didn't know that the transition itself is normal, it's a part of life, and that it would lead me to what was next, I just wasn't able to look ahead. And that's because transition can just feel very uncertain, right? It can feel like something's not right because, hey, everything's supposed to always be perfectly in balance, right? When one thing's off, it's like, wait, what's going on right now? But if you can trust the transition and realize it's always happening at some level, then you can really lean into it rather than away from it. And then you don't have to stay stuck. You can start looking for possibilities. Now, eventually, I started doing that. And one day I found what I was meant to do next because I started looking into the transition. I started trusting it, right? I saw my next step. And that's how it shows up. It's always one small step after the other. Now, I had no idea there would be many more transitions after that, right? Ultimately leading me to where I am today, having an organization that professionally trains and certifies wellness coaches across the globe and getting to share this podcast with you and connecting with just so many amazing people out there. But the point is, if you don't lean into the transition, if you don't trust it, you're not going to get that chance to keep growing and changing, right? So it's a choice. It's like, I'm going to be consciously aware of transitions happening around me and within me, so that I can start taking those small steps. When I first made that transition from a job I didn't love to following my passion, I had no idea what was up ahead, right? I did know I was meant to do something else and I'd find my way, and I was hoping it would be worth it. But I decided to trust that process, even though I wasn't sure what it looked like. And I'll share this with you. I ultimately decided to trust it and I went for it because the fear of not changing became bigger than the fear of actually going for it. So staying stuck and doing nothing it was comfortable at one point, but it became very uncomfortable. It became less uncomfortable and became actually scarier in a worst case scenario than going into the unknown and taking the leap, right? And that's when you know it's time. That's when you know you're kind of at the end of the transition period and you need to take the next step. And it's really underway. And the only thing left to do is move forward. Sure, it was scary. But I'll say this, I surrounded myself with like-minded people who are on a similar journey. And I think that makes all the difference. And that's what this community is for. You don't have to go it alone when it comes to transitions, right? Surround yourself with like-minded people, others who are really trusting transition too and looking ahead, right? And trying new things. It's not everyone around us, right? So we have to find those people. And here's what I really learned about all this. While it feels uncomfortable at first, when you lean into it and you go for it, it's actually freeing, right? And this is coming from someone who does not like change, okay? I've resisted change for many years. But I realize that as these experiences are happening, they're really happening for me, not to me. And we've talked about this before on this podcast, right? Life is happening for you, not to you. Same thing with transitions. And when you get that, what you can do is you can actually start to look for transitions. In fact, you can look forward to transitions instead of being afraid of them. And hope, like instead of hoping, okay, I hope another one's not coming, you're like, okay, there is another one coming. That's the inevitable, right? But how am I going to show up for it? So when you start to realize, for example, the relationship that's fading and not going the way you hope for, or the career that's not lighting you up anymore, or didn't go in the direction you wanted it to, that it doesn't seem to be flowing anymore, whatever it is, that's probably a good thing, not a bad thing, even though in the moment it feels really hard, right? So it's really about, can we let go to experience something bigger and better and more for us? And I do think it's a control thing. I know for myself it is. I want everything to kind of go a certain way. Like we like to be 100% in control of everything, right? But the truth is, maybe we are co-piloting our life's experience. I like to think of it that way. We aren't totally in control. Sure, we have some control, but there's things that come our way for reasons we simply can't explain, right? So can we trust and let go of the control just a little bit? This is a big lesson for me. I get it. It's super scary. Letting go of control is very hard to do. I have to remind myself constantly, but whenever I do, something happens. I'm reminded that things have a way of working themselves out when we don't resist them, right? I think, I'm the best at making things happen. Actually, when I get out of my own way, that's really the best. And you can do this too by just taking small steps. You don't have to do something really big right now if you aren't used to transitions. You don't have to up and quit your job overnight or leave a relationship suddenly that doesn't feel right or end one thing and dive headfirst into another. Though you might do those things, you can also start by just dipping your toe in the water and taking some small steps and noticing, wow, how does that feel? What happens? And what you might notice is the more you trust transition, the more you're going to feel free when you let go of what no longer serves you and take a step toward what does. I believe that's really because transitions are all about becoming more of who you are and how you want to live your life. And when you do that, you get to feel empowered and on purpose. And that is the best feeling in the whole world. And it's something I've watched thousands of people in our community do, stepping into a transition of following their passion and purpose in life and deciding to really start a new path, start a new career as a wellness coach and go out and help people and do something meaningful that really lights them up. And most people are usually transitioning from another career or job that doesn't light them up, or maybe it never did, right? But you've been stuck in it, not knowing what to do. And then you take this leap and you just ride the wave of transition, right? But you do it with support. And then you get to trust that something greater is happening. And things do start to open up very quickly when you take that leap. And that's really the part I love, that once you decide to follow the transition and flow with it and trust it, things do start opening up, right? Maybe the person you were meant to meet shows up, or the opportunity you were hoping for shows up, or the support you need arrives, or the money or resources or time or energy shows up. And that really only happens when you decide to say yes to the transition and really yes to life. And I've seen this happen time and time again for people. In fact, we have an upcoming episode with a guest who has gone through some major life transitions, has a lot to share about what happened for her and what she learned. So look for that coming out on Live Well, Dream Big in a couple of weeks. For now, I want to leave you with this. Take a moment to notice transition around you today, whether it's outside in nature, friends, family, kids, maybe even pets. I know my dog is suddenly very active and playful and wants to be outside all day. Then start to notice transition within you. Are you feeling like rearranging your house, your meals, your relationships, your career, maybe everything? Are there small transitions happening or bigger ones that are brewing that maybe you've been ignoring or pushing aside? And finally, can you trust those transitions? Can you let go and not resist them and lean more into them and take some of those small steps forward? Because it's really about going through transitions, not over, not under, not around, through transitions. And we get to go through it together. That's the great thing. I hope today's episode has supported you to embrace transitions and to take the next small step toward what's in your heart. And I look forward to being in conversation with you again very soon. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Live Well, Dream Big. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And I want to invite you to take your next step toward living well and dreaming big by downloading the Live Well, Dream Big lifestyle book. It's the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. You can grab your complimentary copy by going to the link in the show notes or heading directly to iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide. That's iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide.